Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, robotic surgery, but it's not the future. It's happening right now. And there's this company, Intuitive Surgical, and they're leading the way with this thing called the Da Vinci surgical system. They're a pretty big deal in the field, and we're going to try to figure out why that is.
Yeah, they've really positioned themselves at the forefront of this whole thing, this rapidly developing technology.
So we're basing our deep dive today on an article from the Motley Fool, the finance people. They're known for their stock analysis, and they're calling Intuitive Surgical the ultimate healthcare robotic stock, which is, a pretty bold claim. So let's break it down, see if they're onto something here.
Yeah, that sounds good. What are you most curious about?
Well, for starters, what exactly is the Da Vinci system? I mean, is it like a full-on robot surgeon from the movies?
Not quite a fully autonomous robot surgeon, but it is pretty amazing technology. It's more like, think of it as a highly advanced platform that allows surgeons to perform minimally invasive surgeries, like with incredible precision.
So it's like giving surgeons superpowers or something.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Like it extends their hands and gives them much finer control than they could achieve on their own.
So like a super steady hand. What kind of procedures can it even be used for?
Oh, a pretty wide range. Everything from hernia repairs to hysterectomies. And the technology behind it is really cutting edge. The newest version, the Da Vinci 5, it has an insane amount of computing power. They say like 10,000 times more than the previous model.
Whoa, okay, I'm no computer whiz, but 10,000 times anything sounds like a lot. What does that kind of power even do for the surgery itself?
Well, that translates into some pretty incredible advancements. For example, imagine being able to operate with even more precision, minimizing damage to surrounding tissues. So this could potentially mean faster recovery times for patients, lower risk of complications. Plus, it can give surgeons access to real-time data analytics during the procedure, to help them with decision making.
That's wild. But going back to Intuitive Surgical as a company, how have they managed to kind of become so dominant in this field? I was reading the article, and they were talking about this thing called a moat, which sounds, I don't know, kind of medieval for a tech company.
Yeah, it does sound a little bit out of place, but in business terms, a moat is basically a company's competitive advantage, like, a castle's defenses. And for Intuitive Surgical, their moat is made up of a few key factors. First off, those Da Vinci systems we've been talking about, they cost upwards of $1 million each.
Wow.
So that's a huge investment for any hospital.
So once a hospital has shelled out that kind of cash, I mean, they're probably not super eager to switch to a competitor, right?
Exactly. Plus, surgeons tend to specialize in using particular systems. They undergo extensive training to master the Da Vinci. So naturally, they're going to prefer using the technology that they're most familiar with. This creates a kind of self-perpetuating cycle, keeping Intuitive Surgical at the forefront.
Okay, I'm starting to understand how this all works. They've got the technology, the market share. But what about their business model? How do they actually make money from all this? I was reading the article, and that part really surprised me.
Yeah, it is a pretty clever approach. You might think that most of their revenue comes from selling those million-dollar robots, but it actually doesn't. The real moneymaker is something else entirely.
Okay, you got me hooked. Spill the beans. What's the secret to Intuitive Surgical's money-making machine?
It's all about the recurring revenue. They make most of their money not from selling the robots themselves, but from the instruments and accessories that are needed for each procedure.
Ah, so it's like the classic printer and ink cartridge situation. You buy the printer, but the real cost is in constantly replacing the ink.
Exactly. And for Intuitive Surgical, this recurring revenue is key. Every time a surgeon uses a Da Vinci system, they need new instruments and accessories, and that's where the real profit lies.
Clever. So speaking of profits, how is Intuitive Surgical actually performing these days? Are they living up to the Motley Fool's hype?
Well, their recent performance definitely suggests they're on the right track. The Motley Fool article mentioned that they placed 493 Da Vinci systems in their last quarter. That's an increase from the previous year, and includes 174 of the newest Da Vinci 5 model. Plus, they have a pretty hefty war chest of cash reserves, over $8.8 billion.
Wow. Those are some impressive numbers. It sounds like they're not just riding the wave of this new technology, but like actively shaping the future of surgery. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, their stock. The Motley Fool is calling Intuitive Surgical the ultimate healthcare robotic stock. But is it really a good investment?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? It's a little bit tricky because their stock isn't cheap. It's currently trading at 70 times. What analysts predict their earnings will be? in the future, a metric called forward earnings, and a multiple that high suggests investors are expecting big things from Intuitive Surgical.
Okay, so for someone like me who's not a Wall Street expert, what does that actually mean? Break it down for us regular folk. Should I be considering investing in Intuitive Surgical, or is it too risky?
Well, it's definitely something to consider carefully. There's no doubt Intuitive Surgical has a lot going for it. They're the clear market leader. They have that strong competitive advantage that we talked about, their moat, plus that clever recurring revenue model. And they've shown consistent earnings growth. But that high stock price does mean that there's a lot of expectation built in. If their growth slows down, even a little, the stock price could take a hit.
So it's a bit of a gamble then. High risk, high reward.
Well, there's always a degree of risk with any investment. It really comes down to your individual risk tolerance and investment strategy.
Fair enough. I appreciate you explaining all of that. We've covered a lot of ground here. From the technical details of the Da Vinci system to the business side of Intuitive Surgical. But I'm curious about something else now. What does all this mean for the average person? For patients? How is this technology actually impacting healthcare in a practical way?
Yeah, that's a really crucial question. At the end of the day, this technology isn't just about fancy robots or stock prices. It's about improving people's lives. Minimally invasive surgery, like what's possible with the Da Vinci system, can lead to shorter hospital stays, quicker recovery times, and fewer complications. That means patients can get back to their lives faster and with less pain and discomfort.
So it's not just about pushing the boundaries of technology, but about using that technology to make a real difference for patients.
Absolutely, and that's something I find really exciting about this field. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible with robotics and healthcare. Who knows what the future holds?
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about just how quickly this field is evolving. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday we'll all be having surgeries performed by robots.
Well, all might be a little bit of a stretch. The technology is definitely advancing rapidly, but there will always be a role for skilled surgeons. The Da Vinci, for example, it's a tool that enhances a surgeon's abilities, not replaces them entirely. It's more like a partnership, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. But even with that human element, it does raise some interesting questions. Like, if you needed surgery, would you be comfortable, like being operated on by a robot, even with a surgeon at the controls?
It's definitely something to think about. I mean, personally, I think the potential benefits are huge. If robotic surgery can make these procedures less invasive, with faster recovery times and fewer complications, that's a real game changer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it's like any new technology. There are always some unknowns, and it takes time for people to kind of adjust and get comfortable with it. But the possibilities are really exciting.
They really are, and that's why it's so important for everyone to stay informed about these advancements. The more we all understand about the potential of robotic surgery, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the future of healthcare.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today? What should they be thinking about as they go forth into this brave new world of robot surgeons?
Well, if you're interested in this technology, keep learning, do your own research, ask questions, and be part of the conversation. The future of healthcare is being shaped right now, and it's up to all of us to stay informed and engaged.
You heard it here, folks. This is a field that's moving fast, and things are changing all the time. So keep your eyes open, your mind's curious, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one developing the next big breakthrough in healthcare robotics.
The possibilities really are endless.
Well, that's it for today's deep dive into the fascinating world of healthcare robotics. We hope you found it informative, and maybe even a little bit mind-blowing. And remember, the future of healthcare is in our hands, so let's make it something amazing.
Until next time, stay curious.